Everyone, welcome to Witch Hollow Homestead. Today I am going to harvest some of our potatoes, not all of them. The ones I planted in the back of our house, those aren't ready yet. They were very tiny little nubs when I put them in compared to the ones that I had planted out front that had big long shoots on them. So we are going to go out and get some potatoes harvested, and I thought I would take you along and show you. And then I'm also going to hop inside and show you what I'm going to do with the potatoes once I harvest them. Let's get started. So I thought I would show you one row, not all four, but I did pull all 4 rows this day. I decided to because even though they look really green here, I'm assuming that's the coloring in the camera, IRL, these were all turning very yellow and they were starting to fall over and thinning out. So this is why I decided to pull them. Happy I did. It's the most, I almost said tomatoes. I have tomatoes on the brain right now. It is the most potatoes that I have ever grown, and I'm so excited to show you. I did grow 2 different types of potatoes. I grew Yukon Golds and Russets. I will say I noticed that the Yukon Golds liked to spread really wide, and some of them were even underneath my dill plants and my sage where they grew, whereas the Russets like to just grow straight down. So that was pretty interesting. This was just from one side of my potato bed, and I have another 3 sides to go. Since this was towards the end of July, I knew that I could get some more crops out of this bed. And I was reading online, it said that beets, carrots, lettuce, arugula, kale all grow really well after you've planted potatoes and you want to put something else in the soil. What I decided to do was put a nice layer of compost over the dirt. Then I put a bunch of fertilizer in. And then I planted the seeds for a variety, like I said, of carrots, beets, lettuce, arugula, and kale. I did this harvest pretty early in the morning. I will say this was one of the hottest days that we had, and it was really humid. By the time I got done, I was dripping sweat all over the place. It felt like I definitely worked for these potatoes, but it was well worth it. I topped the seeds with straw, and I also added a little bit more straw to the bed in between where I had my other plants. And now we're going to finish harvesting the rest of these potatoes, but I will see you inside for the completion of the harvest. Here are all of our potatoes from 4 rows. That was 20 potato plants, and we have a little over 50 pounds of potatoes right here. I was very happy with that. One of the things that I make are steak fries, and Mr. Witch cannot get enough of my steak fries. They are his absolute favorite way to eat potatoes. And my secret is I like to wash them up. I cut them pretty big into steak fries, and I blanch them for 3 minutes. And then I'm going to freeze them on a tray, put them in vacuum seal bags, and stick them in the freezer. So when I want to make steak fries, I take them out frozen, I dump them in a bowl, and then I do a little bit of olive oil, salt, and pepper, put them on a tray, and bake them at 425 for 20 minutes, flip them over, and bake them at 450 for another 15 to 20 minutes. They come out perfect every time. The outside is crunchy and crisp, the inside is super soft, and the flavoring is perfect. I'm going to get these potatoes scrubbed, and then we'll begin to cut them. The potatoes that I'm using for steak fries are my biggest potatoes. Doesn't matter if they're Yukon Golds or if they're Russet. I'm just looking for size of potato. So this is how big I cut my steak fries, and then I'm going to put them in a bowl of cold water while I cut more. The smaller potatoes I kept to do home fries, which I will show you those a little later in the video. And then I also kept some of the larger ones to canned potatoes, but that's in a separate video. While I'm cutting up the potatoes, I have a large stock pot on the stove filled with water, and I'm bringing that to a boil so that I can blanch the potatoes. I do work in batches, so this is my first batch that I filled my large bowl. I am going to blanch these, and since they are big because they're the steak fries, I'm actually going to blanch them for 3 minutes because I just need them a little bit more cooked than what 2 minutes gets me. I don't want to overfill the stock pot either, so I'm only going to do a few scoops of the potatoes in the stock pot and then stir them occasionally while they boil for the 3 minutes. When the 3 minutes are up, I have a large bowl with cold water. I am going to scoop out my potatoes and put them in the cold water. So the goal is to stop the cooking process here. You have a couple of options. You could keep them in a bowl of cold water, but you're going to go through a lot of water. You can put them in a strainer and rinse them with some cold water, or you could get them laying out on a tray as soon as you take them out of the cool water, and that way they'll cool a little bit quicker before you put them in your freezer. As you can see here, I'm just going to reach my hands in, scoop these out, and put them in the strainer for a few minutes so that I get off the excess water. Once the excess water is drained off, about 5 minutes, I'm going to put them on a baking sheet just like this and spread them out because I don't want them sticking together. And I'm going to place them in a freezer for 1 hour until they begin to freeze slightly. And then I'll pull them out and vacuum seal them. While those steak fries are freezing, now I'm going to get started with washing off my smaller potatoes in order to make home fries. The size of your home fries are up to you, but I like them bite-sized, so I'll cut them pretty small. And then, same as before, I'm going to blanch them, I'm going to freeze them on a tray, then I'm going to get them out and vacuum seal them. When I go to cook these home fries, I don't tend to fry them in a pan. I do the exact same thing where I take them out of the freezer, put them in some olive oil, salt, and pepper, stick them in a 425-degree oven, let them cook for 20 minutes, take them out, flip them around, and then put them back in the oven at 450. But this time, I only do 450 for 10 to 15 minutes since they are smaller and they will crisp up faster. I filled my bowl with the potatoes cut in home fry shape, and now I'm going to put 3 scoops in my stock pot, and I'm going to boil them for 3 minutes. Exact same pattern with these, just as the steak fries. After 3 minutes, I'm going to pull them out, put them in a bowl of cold water. Then I'm going to dump them into a strainer, let them sit for 5 minutes to let the water drip off. And then I'm going to spread these out evenly on a tray so I can stick them in the freezer for an hour. The home fries are nice because you can fit a few more on a tray compared to the steak fries. It's been about an hour for the steak fries, so we are going to get those vacuum sealed. You can use just regular Ziploc freezer bags if you like. However, I did get a vacuum sealer this year because I learned that the food lasts a lot longer if you put it in a vacuum sealed bag. So I am very, very excited to try this. Something that I like to do with these vacuum sealer bags is I will decide on a size when I first start vacuum sealing a whole bunch of a specific kind of food. And then I'll measure it with this tape measure that you use to measure fabric, but it works great in the kitchen. And then I'll vacuum seal one bag and see what I think. Was it big enough? Was it too big? Whatever the case. And then I'll adjust my size. And that way I know each time that I'm not wasting way too much of a vacuum seal bag or not using enough. And and that way everyone's the same size. The other thing I like to do is measure out my French fries. So I kind of eyeballed how many I usually put in a bowl, and I spread them out on a tray. And then I realized, okay, that's how many I usually use when I'm going to make dinner. So I use the kitchen scale to make sure that every bag has the exact same amount in it and that it's 2 servings every time. Once I vacuum seal these fries in, the last thing I'm going to do is label the bag so that I know what they are, when I put them in the bag, and I also like to put the grams on so that I know how much each bag should weigh so that next year when I do it, I will know my measurement. Now let's hop on over to the home fries. I did the same thing with the home fries where I weighed them out ahead of time so I know how many are in each bag and that it's 2 servings for us. And I tried the funnel here. I need to get better at it, but it's nice to use the funnel to put in the vacuum seal bags, because if you get the edges of the vacuum seal bags too wet, they don't like to seal properly the first time, so this kind of keeps the moisture away from the top. And that's it for today. This is how I like to preserve some of our potatoes from our harvest. Thank you so much for joining me today at Witch Hollow Homestead. I hope you found this video helpful and inspiring. Happy homesteading!